G'day guys, Matthew with the Outer Circle, and today we're going to do a little bit of a quick review on these Necromunda bases in 25mm. What we're also going to do, while I have the opportunity, is sit down and paint a few of them up. What it's going to be is we're going to do a rusty scheme, or just flat rust, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to also do a version where it's like silver decking with rust on the lower parts. It's a two-step process, and I can use one process to get to the other, which is great. Why am I doing it? Because I can. Also, next giveaway I'm going to do, I think I'll give away a set. And while I'm at it, maybe I'll give away this too. That's right, it's a Necromunda giveaway. So that's the $2 buy-in for the Patreon subscribers, that giveaway. For the people on YouTube, don't think you'll go without. I still want to give away the spare Elendil from the Lord of the Rings video I did the other day. And obviously the Titan Maniple will be given away as well. So let's have a look at this bad boy. Just going to open it up first off screen. If you see a big squirt of blood, don't worry, it's just me slicing my hand open. Yeah, I was lazy, I only sliced one side of it open, so it's a little harder to get out. Shit happens. These are cheap, these are like $1 each or something, these bases, so good value from Games Workshop. Manufactured in China as well, for the record. So the bases are pretty much the same pattern as the bases or the floors in the Zone Mortalis from the looks of things. One part injection molded, and I dare say molded from behind, so that way there's no sprue part on top or on the side. Personal pet peeve of mine is when they mold bases into sort of fours like so, and there's the cross piece between them, because it usually means that a chunk of my base is going to get broken off when I cut them off. Unfortunately, happens all the flipping time. So nice to avoid that. So what I'm going to do now, not a very in-depth review, is it? They're bases. How much can I say? They look like Zone Mortalis. I have a lovely stick here with blue tack on it. Just a little piece of plywood, and I've been using this to paint for years. The paint is so thick on it now that, well, it's thick. So I'm going to put all the plastic bases onto it, like so. Helps if I mold the blue tack into shape so I can actually press the base into it. There we go. What I'm going to do is take these outside, and I'm going to give them an undercoat of Citadel Mournfang Brown. Why Citadel? I'm using entirely Citadel paints today, using Lead Belcher, Mournfang Brown, Blazing Orange, Nuln Oil, and Agrax Earthshade. Why? Because people who are buying Games Workshop products generally will also have some form of Games Workshop paints. I could use Vallejo, I could use Army Painter. I'm just choosing to use these. If people are really curious, in the comments below, I can give you alternative colours that come in other paint ranges. So I'll be back in just a moment with this all undercoated, and we'll move on to the next step. Right, so I've moved the camera to a different lens, a different location, and what I've done is I've now got my lovely bases here, and I've mixed up on a palette a 50-50 mix of the Mournfang Brown and the Blazing Orange. That's this nice big diarrhea patch here. I've now taken a bit of foam that I've plucked. It's got a rough edge on it. I've just torn it apart. You don't want a nice clean slice, because what that'll do is give you an even sponge. What I want is an uneven sponge. So with this 50-50 mix, I'm going to pretty heavily dabble all over the surface here. And it pretty much will give me full surface coverage, except in the deepest recesses, like so. Now, I have a couple of options of where I can go from here. If I want a really deep rust, I can make a wash up using the orange with a touch of brown to it and wash it into the recesses. I can also go straight to the next layer of rust. I think personally the recessed wash is the way to go. So what I'm going to do is thin right down the exact same colour that I've just done, and I'm going to wash that into the recesses and come back to it once that's dried. The thought occurred to me I should probably show this process while I'm at it. Do forgive me, it's not often that I do basing tutorials. The brush I'm using is nothing fancy, it's actually just an Army Painter brush. Don't even know what size it is, to be honest. It just came with one of their paint sets, and it's pretty good for this sort of washing because it's only rough stuff that I'm doing. As you can see, it's quite a watery consistency, the paint I'm putting in there, probably about the same as skim milk if I was to try and pick an allegory. So I want to get that into all the recesses like so. And I'm also going to mix up just a tiny bit more orange into it to coat along this edge here, because I think this is going to be an important edge. So probably hear me swirling paint off camera, like so. So obviously I want the heaviest rust build up to be in the corners, like when these rain has happened or some sort of moisture build up, because let's be honest, it's a hive, it's not going to rain, but there'll be rust. You'll get condensation, it'll stick to the ceiling, that kind of thing. So I want to look like the rust has washed away and pooled in all the different corners on this base. So hence why I'm doing the nice bright wash at the moment. What I'll do is I'll come back once that's dried and we'll hit it with some more sponging. Alright, so the next stage in the process, I'm using a lot more orange and a lot less brown. So bear with me as I'm just applying some paint to the palette. Basically I want 2 drops of orange for every drop of brown that I'm going to use. Hopefully it'll give me a lot stronger coloration. The trick is not to absolutely load up the sponge. We don't want full surface coverage. We want all these little speckles. And as you can see, the speckles are reflecting nicely in the light. And it's building up the rust color nicely. What's going to happen from here is I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to repeat the exact same process with just blazing orange. So as you can see, this is a really quick process. What I can also do, once I've done that, is go back and further wash some of the recesses with some more just orange on its own. Again, quite watered down. What did you say? Thin your paints? So thinned right out, and I can put it into the recesses. I could also use like a Lamin medium or acrylic thinners, anything like that to water it down. I don't have to use water. They flow better than water does. And if I want a really crisp line, I can either use oil washes, or I can apply a gloss and use enamels or oils, that kind of thing, and that'll give me a really crisp orange line. But a pin wash, not really needed for bases. It's sort of going overboard, unless you're going for like a golden demon or something like that. So that's pretty much dried in the time I've been talking, because again, it's quite watery. So I'm going to pull out now a bit of that just basic orange on its own. Apply it to my palette. Forgive me, I'm washing the brush as I go. And same again, some nice, strong orange sponging. So what I'll end up here with will be this nice orange base, and I really want to accentuate the rust around the edges. So I'm trying to sponge the edges more. Alright, that is a basic, well, base done. What I'll do is I'll pluck off its buddy from on the side here for a comparison side by side. And I'll just show you how far the base has come in that comparison. So straight away we got a lot more character up close, and I'll see how close in I can get this. I can get it pretty close with this lens. So yeah, lots of little speckling and that kind of thing. And what I'll do is build up the edges of the base quite a bit using washes to give it some really pronounced orange lines in here. And it could take 2 to 3 coats depending, and we'll just see what happens. Alright, so I've now given an extra couple of coats of the bright orange. I'll just pull it in for a close-up look if I can. There we go. So we're not trying to be golden demon level here or anything like that. This is just a quick guide to people who want to make bases quickly and want them to look good. Looking good is not a matter of taking time. It's doing the techniques correctly. There's nothing wrong with speed. I've painted quickly for years. People who know me know I'm the fastest painter you'll ever bloody meet. So now what I want to do is, you could call this done. I personally would put a black lip around the base, and in fact I'll do that later. I actually just went and grabbed some Abaddon black while I was in the other room. What I'm going to do is paint some silver along the top of this. What I'm going to do with that is go very dark. We're going to go with lead belcher. So a little bit of lead belcher on the palette, and I'm going to add about, for the equivalent of every 4 drops of lead belcher, I'm going to add 1 drop of Abaddon black. I'm now going to apply it on the uppermost surfaces of the miniature, or in this case base. Trust me, there is a method to this madness. I'm using an aluminium palette, so you're probably hearing it click and clack around as I put the paintbrush on and off it. Stab the fuck out of it with the paintbrush, right? Doesn't have to be a perfect coat, just a nice even coat across the whole surface. Thin your paints, thin your paints, suck my dick, thin your paints. Right. Got to make some more paint up. Actually, it's quite warm in the house at the moment, so that dried a lot quicker than I anticipated. Go figure, it's just that time of year, I'm afraid. Australian summers are notoriously hot. So, like I say, every dramatically up surface or dramatically raised surface, I want to paint in this nice bright silver. Well, it's actually not a bright silver, is it? It's the exact opposite of that. It's a dull silver. So, I'll paint these surfaces here as well. Beautiful. Looks bright, doesn't it? It's actually not that bright. The lead belcher is quite a dark base coat, and it's mixed with a touch of black as well. It just so happens that with the light and the brightness of the orange around it, it complements it really well. Well, the darkness of the rusty finish around it, I should say. I've hit the cap of that bolt slightly. Doesn't matter. Will not affect me in the least. In fact, what I'll probably do is do all the other bolt caps, because I want it to look like the uppermost surfaces that get walked on all the time are free of rust, and all these surfaces where that are lower down, like in grates and that kind of thing that people aren't walking on, are going to be the surfaces that are rusty. because they're not being cleaned or polished or anything like that, are they? So that's pretty much dried straight away. Now I'm going to use a bit of Agrax Earthshade just directly out of the pot, and I'm going to paint that across that surface. I don't want to have it flow down into the recesses. If it does that, it will artificially darken the washes we did earlier. And where it does run down into the recesses, like it just did on that bulkhead up in the right, what I can do is, while it's still kind of wet, is simply wash the brush off, a little bit of moisture still on the tip, and just go back in and clean it out like so. Now what we have is this real tarnished looking finish. But we're not just going to leave it there. I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to come back. I'm going to perform another step. What I might do for this one is grab another steel, maybe like Runefang or Chainmail, that kind of brightness, and we'll go from there. Right, you know, now I'm back. This is all dried. I have Chainmail, an older Citadel paint, but I think the equivalent now is Ironbreaker. So I'm just going to put a little bit of it on my palette off to the side. Now, on a big project where I'm doing wet blending or non-metallic, something like that, yeah, I might bother to show you the palette constantly throughout, but for this, it's pretty much just flat colors, basic colors, and whenever I'm sponging like I'm about to, it's straight out of the pot. I've got a little bit of foam held in some tweezers, because as I apply this, I want to be hitting specific areas on the upper surfaces. And the tweezers sort of give you a finer control that you might not otherwise have. So you can see I've got a little bit of it onto the orange, but what I can go back and do is just mix up a little of that Mournfang brown and blazing orange from earlier. With a little bit extra brown to it. Put that across the top, and that'll take away most of the metallic tinge, and then I can come back with that same little sponge and add a little more on. Now what I'm going to do is just add a little Aerial Yellow to that very same blazing orange. And again, this is quite a fat brush in comparison to something like a small base coat brush, something like that maybe, in comparison to the work. You don't need a super fine brush if you're not doing super fine detailed work, which I'm not. Just going to tear and another little bit of foam. So like I said, it's not big foam, and I'll tear that in half again because I don't need that much. Not for this tiny little pair of tweezers. So the little bit of orangey yellow will be to really bring out some of these edges on the rust, and it doesn't matter if I get any on my metallic surfaces because I can just quickly wipe it off with my finger while it's still damp. And there we go. Now I have a couple of other options I can choose to do from here. Let me just get this into focus again. I can wash it some more to dull that silver down a little, which I may. That's why I brought out the Nuln oil, which I haven't even used yet. But what I'd really like to do to pretty it up is just to paint around the rim of the base. So let me pull this very sticky blue tack, there we go, aside, And all up, it's only taken a few minutes to do this base, and this is taking longer than it would by far normally because I'm doing it all on camera for other people. So just some Abaddon Black mixed with a little bit of moisture, precipitation, if you will. And I'm just going to go around and paint the rim of the base like so. And I mean, it's painting a rim of a base, it's not hard. I'll come back in a moment once that's done, and after I get all the paint off my fingers, it's inevitably going to happen, and we'll show off the finished base. So now I've finished it up, and you can see the end results. So I have this lovely decking surface. Put the flat brown one aside. This lovely decking surface, which is all damaged and worn and torn and chipped, and we've got all the rusty lower surfaces as well. It's all up taken me maybe 5 minutes of actual painting to do this base to this standard. And you can imagine how easy it would be if you didn't have a camera between you and what you're working on, and you can just literally sponge the crap out of this whole thing at once, wash all the bases at once, and you've got a nice big mix of paint so it's not drying on you constantly. Because I was only doing the single base, my paint was just drying all the time because I wasn't mixing up much because I'm a tight ass and don't want to waste my paint. What I'll do is I might take some glory shots up close. Do remember, you can always, like I said, hit it with some Nuln oil over the top just to dull it down a bit more. And again, as earlier said, these aren't Golden Demon bases. These aren't supposed to win your painting tournaments and that kind of thing. These are supposed to be quick, simple, so that even someone who's not confident with their abilities can produce a pretty effective looking base. And it's not using the typical Games Workshop styles with like edge highlighting along here and things like that. It's basic and simple is good. So I highly encourage people to give it a shot. And hit us up on Facebook, send us images of your completed bases, let us know how you've done. I also will be painting up some Shadespire bases later during the week. Hopefully people enjoy that. And if you like this episode or there's anything different you'd like to see done, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching this review / quick tutorial, and I'll see you all next time.